Okay, this is Earth, Space, Science, Common Assessment Podcast. We have broken this up into the different investigations so that each slide is an investigation, so it should match up with each of the boxes on your study guide. So we'll start out here first. Constellations. So once again, find the box on your study guide, should be in the top left-hand corner. Constellations. What is a constellation? That's a pattern or grouping of stars. Should be stars there. Excuse the misprint. Stars. That people imagine to represent a figure or object. Next up, and it should go right down from the constellations box, we have rotation versus revolution. How does Earth's year relate to its motion in space? And of course, one revolution of Earth around the sun creates that 1 year. What does Earth's rotation cause? Earth's rotation causes night and day. Eclipse. During what phase does a solar eclipse, that's going to be during a new moon, and a lunar eclipse occur? That's going to be during a full moon. Man on the moon, again following along here in order on your study guide. What causes the moon phases, and why do we see certain phases from Earth? Well, first of all, it depends on how much of the lit side of the moon is facing Earth. Remember, at all times, 1/2 of the moon is lit. So, dependent upon which of that lit side, half of it, is facing us, depends on the moon phases. Why do we see certain phases from Earth? Oh, I guess that's redundant there. Depends on how much of the lit side of the moon is facing Earth. So it's on there twice. You can copy this or this. 'Tis the season. This is in the middle column. Why does Earth get seasons? 2 reasons. Earth is tilted on its axis. So that's the first one right here, tilted on its axis, as it revolves around the sun. So that revolution, and right now it doesn't seem like it after yesterday, but we are every day tilting more and more towards the sun to get those direct rays. Without us revolving, we would just be tilted in one direction. The high and the low, bottom box in the middle. What causes tides? That's the gravitational pull of the moon and the sun. When these two are pulling in the same direction, of course, the tides are higher. Moon versus Earth and crash course. Top box, right-hand side. Marea, first the definition of Marea. Those are dark flat areas on the moon's surface formed from huge ancient lava flows. And then craters, large round pit caused by the impact of a meteorite. Where we talked about that is when it has hit. Popcan solar system. What's the difference between weight and mass? Best way to do that is to understand the definition. We've talked about this quite a bit. Mass is constant, and it's a property of an object. Weight depends on the amount of gravity. Why do things weigh different on different planets or moons? The force of gravity is different, or the mass of the planet is different, and it depends on the object's mass on the force of that gravity, how strong or how weak it is. Next one here, classifying space objects. Go ahead and flip over to the back of your study guide. What makes up the solar system? Well, just to name some of the more general objects here, planets, of course 8 of them, dwarf planets, stars, asteroids, comets, and moons. What's the definition of a dwarf planet? It's an object that orbits the sun. It is spherical, so it is round, but has not cleared the area of its orbit. Our solar system. What are the characteristics of the inner planets? Those are small and rocky. What are the characteristics of the outer planets? They're very large, gaseous, so mainly gas, high gravity, high gravitational pull, so that gas cannot move away from the planet. Plus, they're farther from the sun, which also increases the amount of gas. And they all have rings. A terrestrial planet, that's the name given to the 4 inner planets. So if you ever see a terrestrial planet, they are talking about the 4 inner planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Okay, your data table in your book, your notebook. Make sure you are familiar with that. So you're going to look at a chart and be able to make some generalizations about the period of revolution of the planets. So seeing a different revolution time, being able to make generalizations from that data table, that chart. Something very similar to previous quizzes, previous tests. This is just changing the topic. Gravity and motion. Now we're in the middle on the back. At the top, what factors affect gravity between 2 objects? And there are 2 of them. The first one is distance between them and their masses. So those are the 2 things that affect gravity between 2 objects. What are the factors that keep Earth in motion around the stars? Inertia keeps it going away in a straight line. Gravity pulls it in, and it's constantly in this fight, so to say, as it moves around the sun. The sun. How does the sun produce energy? It goes through nuclear fusion, and that is a vocab word in the back of your notebook. Where at? That takes place at the core. And then our last box here. What is the difference between the heliocentric and geocentric models? Geo, we've talked about geo, talk about using prefixes, and we've got centric in the middle. That is where they thought Earth was in the center and all objects revolved around it. When you are standing on the planet looking up, what you see move, you can understand why people at this time believe that. And then we have helio, again using the same prefix, and that is for the sun at the center of the solar system. Okay, general things about the short answer questions. You're going to need to write a claims and evidence statement based on how Earth and the sun look in space on the longest day in the northern hemisphere. So when it's the northern hemisphere, for us, how's Earth look? How does the sun, where's it at? And how's Earth placed? There will also be a table that lists the planets, their mass, their diameter, and their average distance from the sun. Very similar to what you did in the Our Solar System investigation. You're going to be writing a claims and evidence statement based on information presented in the table. Make sure your evidence explains why you picked the planet you did. Don't write because the info's in the data table. You got to have a good reason for why. Got to come from the data table. Another one. This question also will include a table that has information on tides. The information will include the date, high and low tide, tide time, height, and moon phase. You'll need to write a claims and evidence statement claiming when there will be a spring tide. Remember, during a spring tide, the sun and the moon, put a couple craters on here, are in a line with Earth, and that tide is pulled. So we've got higher highs and lower lows. Your evidence will need to have support from information included in the data table. Okay, just a couple tips. Make sure you head to My Big Campus. We've got a couple practice quizzes on there. This podcast, of course, you found it. It's posted there also. Again, a couple practice quizzes. One of them is a most missed question quiz from all the quizzes and information previous to this. I think that's an important one that you need to do. And then obviously study with someone else. Grab a parent, older brother. This has been your Earth Space Science Common Assessment. Best of luck.